So now that we have learned how to find the greatest common factor of all the terms, we're going to put that together. We're going to actually factor a polynomial. So what is factoring? Factoring is the unmultiplying of a polynomial. I'm going to be taking the polynomial apart and undoing the distributive property. So normally I give you a problem like this. I say 2 times x minus 3. You take and you distribute that 2 inside and you get 2x minus 6. You distribute it. Well, I want to go the other direction. I'm going to give you something like 3x minus 12, and I'm going to ask you what two things or how many things did I multiply. So I'm going to have something like that when I'm done. Something on the outside and something on the inside. Okay? So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and going to go back to my prime factorization. So 4 prime to its prime factors is 2 times 2, and then x squared is x times x. Okay, doing the same thing for 6x, a little off to the right here. 6 is 2 times 3, and then times x. So I'm going to look and see which of these factors they have in common. Well, they both share a 2, and they both share an x, which means their greatest common factor is 2x. So I'm going to go down here, I'm going to write 2x, and then a parentheses. So do this every single time. Find your GCF using whatever method you want to. Then take whatever your answer is, multiply it together, and write it down here with the parentheses. What I like to do is I like to write the question again off to the side. So 4x squared plus 6x. And whatever my GCF was, everything, variable, numbers, everything, I'm going to write that under each term. Because when you're undoing or you're unmultiplying, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I have two terms out here. So when I unmultiply, I'm going to have two terms on the inside as well. Okay. Basically, I'm asking myself, 2 times what is 4? And x times what is x squared? Same thing as saying 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then in the last section, we've done our power rules here. So x squared divided by x, I subtract those exponents. So 2x's take away 1x, leaves me 1x left over. So 2 times 2 gives me that 4. And then x times x gives me x squared. All right. What is positive 6 divided by 2? Well, that's positive 3. And then what is x divided by x or x take away x? Well, those cancel. And that's it. So I've taken and I've unmultiplied this. So I can always check it by looking at it again. 2 times 2 is 4, x times x, x squared. 2 times 3 is 6, and then x just gives me 6x. So I've taken this guy and unmultiplied him. Okay, let's do that again. Over here, my GCF, well, the smallest number is 3, so the factors of 3 are 1 times 3. That's all I got there. Does 3 go into 12, and does 3 go into 24? Well, let's see. So the factors of this are 3 times 1. I'm going to go ahead and do x times x. The factors of 12 all broken down. Well, that's 2 times 2 times 3, because 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12. So you can do that factor tree on your own if you need to, but I get 2 times 2 times 3, and there's an x there as well. Okay, 24 is 6 times 4. Well, 4 is 2 times 2, and 6 is 2 times 3. So you can write that out as long as you need to, but it's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, and there's no x on that guy. Now I'm going to go through and look what they have in common. Well, they all have a 3. This guy does not have any x's, therefore I can't circle these. These guys have x's in common, but they don't all 3 share that in common, so the only thing they have in common is just a 3. So my GCF is just a 3, parentheses. Okay, I like to write my problem again, so I'm going to write it right here since I've run out of space a little bit. So 3x squared plus 12x minus 24. Whatever my GCF is, I'm going to write that below. So I'm going to divide by 3, and divide by 3. So I had 3 terms on the outside, so I should have 3 terms on the inside. Well, what is 3 divided by 3? Well, that's 1. And you don't need to write the 1 because x squared take away nothing is still x squared. So whether you write that 1 or not, it doesn't matter. in this case because there's an x squared there. Okay, what is positive 12 divided by 3? Well, that's going to be a positive 4. And then x take away nothing is still just x. What is negative 24 divided by 3? Well, that's going to be a negative 8. And there's no x's, so that guy's done. Well, 3 times 1x squared is 3x squared. 3 times 4x is 12x. 3 times negative 8 is a negative 24. I've just unmultiplied that by dividing every single thing by the GCF. So let's go ahead and do 2 more examples. So I'm going to go ahead and break this guy down. He's going to be 2 times 2, and he's going to have 5 x's. So I'm going to write that pretty small there. 6 is going to be 2 times 3, and then he's going to have 3 x's. And 10 is going to be 2 times 5, and he's going to have 2 x's. All right, going back through and looking what they have in common, they all 3 terms share a 2. And this guy with the least amount of x's, he kind of dictates the entire thing. He has 2 x's, and everyone else also has 2 x's. So my GCF is at most what that least guy has. So my GCF is 2xx, which makes my GCF 2x squared, parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and write my problem again over here to the side. So 4x to the 5th minus 6x cubed plus 10x squared. That's a 2 here. And then I'm going to write down whatever my GCF was under each term. So I'm going to go ahead and divide every single thing by 2x squared. I'm asking myself, 2x squared times what is 4x to the 5th? 2x squared times what is negative 6x cubed, etc. So going through each term separately, I have 3 terms here. I should have 3 terms on the inside. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 5 minus 2 is x cubed, or 5 x's take away 2 x's is x cubed. A negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, or 3 x's take away 2 x's is just 1x. A positive 10 divided by 2 is a positive 5. X squared divided by x squared of 2 minus 2. Those guys cancel out, and that's my GCF. And I can double check by multiplying back through. 2x squared times 2x cubed is 4x to the 5th. 2x squared times negative 3x is negative 6x cubed, and 2x squared times 5 is a positive 10x squared. So you can always check your answer at the very end. Okay, let's go ahead and do this guy again. The factors of negative 14 is a 2 times a 7 times x, and we'll talk about that negative in 1 second. 21 is 3 times 7 times y. All right, so all the ones we've done so far have all had a leading coefficient of a positive integer. We do not want to have a negative out front. So if you ever have a negative out front, we're going to automatically factor out a negative and then take care of that GCF. Well, GCF in this case is just 7. This guy has an x, he has a y, and then they have different factors. So just a 7 in that case. So my GCF is going to be a negative 7 parentheses. So if you ever have a leading coefficient of a negative, just bring that negative down and divide every single thing by negative. So I'm going to go over here and write my problem again. And I'm going to divide every single thing by negative 7. Well, what is negative 14 divided by negative 7? Well, that's going to give me a positive 2. And I have no variables, so just x divided by nothing is just x. What is negative 21 divided by negative 7? Well, that's going to be a positive 3. And then y divided by nothing is still just y. I can check my answer. Negative 7 times 2x is negative 14x. And negative 7 times 3y is negative 21y. So I went ahead and made a note here. If your leading coefficient is negative, then you need to factor out a negative. So make sure if you ever have a negative out front, if it's in the standard form, and this is a negative out front, go ahead and factor out a negative automatically. So for our next example, I'm going to look. I have this guy's in standard form, and I have a negative out front, so I know automatically I'm going to be factoring out a negative something. Listing my factors, I know, and I can actually do this one as just a factor one, not the prime factors. I know that The factors of 4 are 4 times 1. The factors of 12 are 4 times 3 times x. And the factors of 8 are 4 times 2 times x times x. So you can use whatever method you want to. I went ahead this time, instead of breaking all the way down to its prime factors, I know that 4 goes into all of these, so I'll go ahead and do 1 times 4 here. I know that 4 goes into all of them. So 4 is here, 4 is here, 4 is here. If you did the prime factorization, you would have had 2 sets of 2's for each of these. So whichever method you want is fine, but that means that that negative automatically and the 4 are my GCF. So negative 4 parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write this question again off to the side. And I'm going to divide each term by negative 4. Again, if I have 3 terms, I should have 3 terms on the inside. What is negative 8 divided by negative 4? Well, that's going to be a positive 2. There's no dividing by a variable, so x squared divided by nothing is still x squared. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. X divided by nothing is an x. And positive 4 divided by negative 4 is a negative 1. You can always check your answer by distributing again. Okay, going over here. The factors of negative 12 are 3 and 4, 2 and 6, 1 and 12. The factors of 5 are 1 and 5. Nothing goes into 12 and 5. So you can list those all out, but there's nothing in common. So I'm just going to look at the variables this time. So we got x, x, y, y, and y, and x, y, and y. So looking at just the variables they have in common, we have 2 y's and 1x. And they technically have a 1 in common, but we don't need to write down a 1. So everything's always at least got a 1 in common. But don't forget, this guy's negative, so automatically I'm going to come down here and bring a negative with me. And they have 1x and 2 y's, so I'm going to write x, y squared. So my GCF is negative xy squared, parentheses. I'm going to write this over separately. And I'm going to divide every single thing by x, y squared, x, y squared. Well, negative 12 divided by an understood, oh, I actually miswrote. This is a negative. I forgot my negative there. Okay, good catch. There we go. Negative 12 divided by negative understood 1, we can write a 1 there if we need to, is going to be a positive 12. X, so 2 minus 1, or x squared, take away 1x, is going to leave 1x left over. The y's, 3 minus 2, or 3y's, take away 2y's, leaves 1y left over. Positive 5 divided by negative 1 is a negative 5. X and x cancel. Y squared and y squared cancel. So nothing is left there, so boom, that guy's finished.